This is the Blackout Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people that do amazing things. And today I'm finally, it's been like months I'm trying to get you. But you're a super busy guy. I have Colin MacDonald on the podcast
Yeah,
today.
thanks for having me on. Yeah,
so
appreciate it.
let's see what I know you do. I know you edit. I know you direct. I know you write. I know you are a dad. I know you brew. How do you make all these things work?
Basically, I don't sleep. Pretty much. It's, no, it's just, it's a balance, right? So it's brewing, I just squeeze in when I can. And, I have joint custody with my kids. So I have week on, week off. So the weeks that I don't have her, I just try to bang out as much as I can. But no.
How did you get into film?
I got into film. I was always a movie nerd. I worked my first job was working at a Blockbuster. Worked in video retail for probably 10 more years. I worked at Blockbuster, worked at Video Difference here in Halifax for a few years. And then in that time, after I moved back to Halifax, I signed...
Where?
Originally from Pictou County. So I'm from Stellarton. And I was...
That's the Sobeys place, right?
Yeah, the Sobeys are from there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the wealthiest family from Pictou. But yeah, I wanted to come back here, so I moved with my partner at the time, and she was going to Dal. I went to NSCC for the Screen Arts program.
Yeah.
So I did that from 2006 to about 2008, and then what lucked out is doing that program, you get an internship. So I picked up a project with a local filmmaker. And then about a year after that, it was Donna Davies. She's done a bunch of
documentary.
Yeah.
She's a superstar.
She is.
I'm trying to get her to come on the podcast.
If you think I'm busy,
I
Donna's hard one to
know.
lock down. But if you can get her, she's amazing. I did an internship with her because they knew I was into horror films. So I did an internship on a project about women in horror, and did that for a month. And then a year and a half after that, she had a documentary about K&B Effects out of LA. And so she hired me on as a PA, production assistant, and it was supposed to be 3 months. And I worked on that for about a year and a half. And that got me into assistant editing and working in post-production. And then just kind of, once you're into that contract and you do a contract, it's like, well, I just got to keep doing this. So I kept rolling with, moving from project to project, worked with her a few more times and just wherever.
And what do you like about editing?
I'm a story guy. I love storytelling. And so that's why kind of the writing, directing, and editing have always kind of been my trio of interests. But the edit's like your final rewrite,
I know,
right?
right?
So you get a lot of involvement in storytelling, or ideally you do. Ideally.
I want to ask that one. How do you prefer working with directors? Like, you do want them. What's your ideal approach when a director comes with a project? I made this film.
Right.
How would you like it to go?
It can kind of vary from project to project and kind of circumstances.
Ideally, what would you like?
If we're talking narrative, like a fiction type thing, I'd like some notes, the kind of circle takes, indicating the stuff to really focus on. And then I'd like some time to go through it with the script and just put what I think works together. And then kind of, get some feedback from the director. And then eventually, we would work together. But I'm so used to working at this point on my own that, I think one of the last things I did with Michael Melsky was a music video. Oh. And he's a director around who's been doing 20 some years.
The Child Remains.
Yeah. That was his, but he did a music video in the winter for Adam Baldwin. Local musician. He started out with Matt Mays and then was branching out on his own. So they did a big music video, and he brought me on, and it was the first time for Michael in 20 years that he didn't sit down with the editor. He sent me notes, very specific notes and takes, and I put it together, and I think we cut it in like 2.5 weeks or something like that. Yeah, it was pretty tight because it had a lot of visual effects and it had a deadline.
Did you work on the effects, or it had?
No, it went to a proper.
Yeah.
It was a lot of driving scenes, a lot of compositing stuff, and Adam was playing 2 characters, so there was a lot of compositing them into the same shot twice. But yeah, they shot it in December, and I got the footage like end of December, and we were delivering it at the end of January, and I had to go through the visual effects and color correction in there as well. So it was a very short but
is the video out now?
It is, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I can send you a link. It's on YouTube. It's called the song's called Salvation.
Great.
It's a fun. It's a kind of dark take on like the taxi driver concept, like that movie, where he's like, it's about just having kind of split personality type things, but like there's an evil version, and it's good though, and it updates it with like the Uber type drivers and stuff. So.
That's where the VFX came in with the Uber screen.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, it turned out really well. I was pretty proud of it considering I was also working full time and doing that.
So most of that you were cutting it at night then, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
On weekends.
Yeah, pretty much. Anytime I could sit down at the computer and bang out some stuff. But
And then, do you remember the first film you made for yourself?
First film outside, like out of film school? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did one really bad one that I'll never send anybody.
What was it called?
It was called Livingstone Place.
Oh,
and
okay.
Originally it was written for one of those like 48-hour film contests. So, the idea was like you had the idea, or they gave you some components to put into the film.
Yeah.
And you had to do it. So I signed up for that and planned on shooting it. And then at the time, my dad was ill, and there was a lot of personal family stuff. So we didn't shoot for the contest.
Yeah.
But then I liked the idea enough that like a couple months later, we went and did it. But it was just like a home invasion, creepy slasher short with a lot of blood and special effects. But yeah, I don't really send that one out to people. It was probably sorry?
No, go
I was gonna say probably my first like short that I was super proud of was one called Presence that I had Glenn Matthews. He was a local actor at the time. He was in Hobo with a Shotgun, The Corridor, tons of great films. We developed that with Donna Davies actually when I was at Donna Davies' company for like a application with the CBC. They had a funding program for shorts, so we applied for that and didn't get it. But I came out of it and I finished my contract with Donna. Had the script. It was 2 characters in like 2 interior locations, and I was like, I could do this. Like I don't need.
Might as well.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of fundraising stuff. I raised about almost $3,000 on my own, and then we went up. It was like 2 weekends in January, and we shot at a studio, Coda Pop Studios, up on Quimple Road, and then shot at friend's place in the Hydrostone for the other day. And it's about a guy it's all connected around hearing. I don't know if I've sent you the link to it before, but I'll shoot you a link because it's all about the idea of a musician who injures his hearing, and then he taps into other creatures from another dimension. And it's very like psychological, but...
Why, like almost, actually... I don't know if all your films have been horror or thriller, but why is that a genre that you're particular about?
That goes back to being a kid. One of my earliest movie memories was probably being 6 or 7 and sitting down with my family and watching RoboCop, which a 7-year-old shouldn't watch, but I just remember being fascinated by the special effects, and my parents were really great about like explaining it. So as a kid, I had a healthy understanding of like, these are special effects, this is fake, and that fed into my love of Halloween, and I was obsessed with Michael Jackson's Thriller. I used to get my family to rent me the VHS, which was the full video, and then a making of.
Oh God! You know,
so good.
I don't know who I was talking about, but recently I was actually talking about that with someone, and I said watching that thing is what made me want to make music videos actually, because it was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, no, it was, and like to have that kind of first like behind the scenes look, like pull the curtain back and see the process. I actually kind of funny wraparound is my daughter's obsessed with Michael Jackson and Thriller. And so then I found the making of on YouTube. So we sat down and watched the video and the making of, and it was just this moment where, I was like, I was taken back.
Yeah.
It was full circle. But yeah, there was that. And then seeing like George Romero movies, like Night of the Living Dead, around Halloween time, all that stuff, it fed into my love of Halloween.
I swear to God, I was just reading an article about him, and that his first one, I can't remember what the first one was, actually based on a book. And it was someone else's book, like a well-known author, but he didn't have permission to do that. So he kind of talked to the person, and the person just kind of said it was okay because it wasn't going to make money on that first one.
Right. Yeah.
But
But the problem is he didn't though.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
make money.
Yeah, but then he made like all these other ones off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was actually the I Am Legend book.
Yeah, I Am Legend. Yeah.
And,
I just read it up. I didn't know this story.
it's such a good book. But yeah, that was a movie that I was just fascinated because it would be on like I remember going over to my grandfather's place around Halloween and it would just be on any random channel and I'm like to me it was like I was young enough I was like this is thriller, like there's zombies breaking down doors, like it took me to the Michael Jackson video, so I just in my head kind of combined them, so I was obsessed. Zombies are still my favorite. So
but you've not made one before though.
I've made a few zombies, none that I'm proud enough. What was really funny, actually, was through film school. I kind of going into it, I didn't expect to get to make anything that was creepy or gruesome or zombie related, and I ended up making like 3 short projects that were all like horror or zombie related. And I'm like, really? I'm getting the chance to do this stuff? So, it was really cool. But yeah, no, I've been itching actually to do a proper zombie movie.
What do you think of what's this show? The Walking Dead.
I've fallen off the bandwagon the last few seasons. I was a huge fan of the comics because Robert Kirkman had a really healthy appreciation of George Romero, who to me is, the modern zombie. He's the guy who, kind of birthed that genre. So Kirkman always had that appreciation and kind of approached it the same way. So I was huge in the comics early on. And then when the show came around, I was definitely into it because it was, well made and fairly faithful, but still surprising. But then, it was around seasons. It was funny, actually. It was around the same point in the comics, like story-wise, that I lost interest in the comics. It was around the same time that I lost interest in the show. It was like some of the big communities, and it was getting, I don't know. It was getting a little repetitive. So.
Yeah, it was like, oh, these are the bad people. Now we have to fight these people.
Yeah.
Okay, we fought this people. Now these are the bad people.
Yeah. So no, it's it did good things, but it was
how about Dawn of the Dead, the remake that was in the mall?
Yes, yeah.
I actually really like that film.
I did too. I did too.
A lot of people was like, oh, no, it's not good. But I think the part that really sucked me was the ending.
Right.
Like the credits.
Right.
When you thought they were like, they've actually escaped in the boats, and then at the credits you see like, no.
Right. Yeah. No, I am a fan. That was a hard one going in though, because the original is one of my favorite movies. It's my favorite out of Romero's, and it's just one of my top favorite films. So going in a remake, I knew I had to approach it knowing that they're not gonna take Romero's stance. Like that. Like if you watch the original and you think of it when it was made and how much of a commentary it is on like capitalism and this need to like consume and buy, and the fact that it was made in the 70s, long before that was really a social thought, right? Like malls weren't even a big thing at that time. Yeah. And here's a guy saying talking about how it's not a great mindset to have. And also like for that ending of like you think they're alive and great. The original, the way it ends, it's so. On the surface, it feels so happy, but then when you think about it, you're like, no, they're fucked. Because they if you haven't seen it, they're escaping the mall and they have a helicopter, and it's just this line where the main guy, Ken Faree's like, how much fuel do we have? And the woman who's flying the helicopter's like, not much. And then they just fly off into the sunset, and there's music swells, and you think it's beautiful, and you're like, probably in an hour their helicopter's gonna crash, and they're gonna be eaten. Like that's not a happy ending at all. But I did love the remake too. It was it was an entertaining.
It was one of these directors that made it.
It was Zack Snyder.
Yeah, him. You know what? I'm like he's fun really, but then I think what happens is when he makes his own stories, then there's a problem. Yeah, if he takes a story that exists, right, and he makes it, right, it's fucking great. Yeah. But if he makes his own story, it's like, oh god. I don't know. I'm not sure why. No, for sure. I think the big thing with that Dawn of the Dead, because that was one of his first big budget movies, was the script was written by James Gunn, who has gone on to direct Guardians of the Galaxy now, but he started out doing like schlock horror with Trauma Entertainment in New York, like the cheapest. Just like whatever. And he has a lot of great like horror comedies, and he has he has a sense for the comedy and the timing. He also has a sense for the gore and the scares. So I think a lot of what worked in that remake was the script. You get moments like
Who's is it? No, not Ty Diggs. Who was the the guy whose wife was pregnant?
Oh, and then he hit it.
Yeah, and then he's holding a zombie baby. That's just get like you get these moments that are so dark, and I think that's James Gunn just could go there, and then still make it accessible for like a big budget.
How do you feel about someone directing your script?
That's never happened for me, but I would be into it. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
No?
Hey? I don't know.
Yeah?
I'm not sure. I think about it. Like, I mean, fuck, if they paid me a lot of money, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you ever, like, don't you feel as a writer, like, when you give someone, the person is going to change.
Right.
It's just going to change.
Right.
And then there's a part of you that's going to say, oh, maybe I wouldn't have done that.
Right. Yeah.
But you have directed someone's scripts. How was that experience?
I recently did it. I've done it a couple times now.
Yeah.
But this most recent one, Kevin Hartford.
Yeah.
He and I have been friends forever. And then he kept telling me all along, he's like, I'm going to give you a script. Like, I want you to direct something of mine. Like, we should collaborate. And then out of nowhere, he messaged me like, I was looking at your movie poster for Presents, my short that I was talking about earlier. And I wrote this, and it's weird, but I don't know. Here you go. And so I'm reading it, and it was a very Kevin Hartford. It's kind of theatrical because he does a lot of plays as well, and it's very much his sense of humor. And I was like reading, I was like, this is entertaining. I love his type of comedy. I was like, but I don't get where like my side of it comes in, and then it gets to the end, and it has a really dark and gruesome twist. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This is why it's for me. So yeah, we did that, and it was a really great experience because I partnered up with an actress, Brittany Kanzi, who I've worked with a couple times before, but we've just been itching to do more stuff. And so I sent her the script, and she got it right away, and she came on as a producer as well. And, we had a couple of great read-throughs, and we rewrote the script. So I got to inject a bit of, like, some of my humor, which I don't do a lot of comedy, but working from Kevin's script, I was able to put in a bit more of mine, and Brittany came with some really funny ideas, and then it just translated really well. Like, it was a really smooth shoot, and we had done so much prep that.
How long did you shoot for?
We just shot a day because it's two characters in their apartment. So the premise is that they find out out of nowhere that their kitchen counter has this supernatural ability to give them whatever they want. So it starts out with them asking for like an apple, and then the stuff just keeps building up until they accidentally ask for something that they shouldn't, and it ends in a very gruesome.
Do you do the special effects for your films?
I mean, for that one, it was pretty like I designed it originally. The script called it to be a lot more to be even more gruesome than we end up shooting. I found ways to all right, if we did this, we can minimize, because the whole idea was like the kitchen counter was giving presents to these roommates, so we kind of were able to wrap up the gifts that they gave. So when we needed a body that was covered in blood, I wrapped it up in garbage bags. So then I just had to so that one I did, but usually on a bigger thing, I would bring someone on to help me with. It's,
do you work with the same people or different? It differs from shoot to shoot.
I honestly haven't needed a lot of special effects in the last couple years. I've done a few more just dramas, like dark emotional dramas. So I haven't needed a lot of special effects. Did a few music videos probably like 4 or 5 years ago that needed some body parts and blood. So there's a couple guys. Yeah, there's a couple guys that I call on. Troy Kirker. He just loves to get. I had a really. This was for that music video probably 5 years ago. Yeah. And I remember having a moment with him where I was texting him, or I went to text him, and I texted about something about needing a severed head. And what was great was the response I got back was, I don't know who this Troy guy is, but he gets a lot of interesting texts. And he had changed his number, and I was just texting some random person. But you get some weird moments when you're like, all right, bring out the body parts.
I remember watching a film you made with Kayla Flynn last year.
Yep.
I can't remember the title.
It was called Nuisance.
Yeah, but the mask. Where was the mask from?
That was just a Halloween costume that I was buying, and I kind of want to. Yeah, I didn't have a great concept for a Halloween costume. I usually make my own costumes, and for whatever reason, last year I was just like, and I went to a Halloween store and saw this mask, and it just kind of jumped out at me. So I was like, this would be cool for a Halloween costume, and I was like, this could work, for so it was really, that whole project started as just like a makeup test, really. It was like, how will this look on camera? And then Brighton Kalin was Brittany Kanzi was in it as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
that whole thing came out of just like improvising. We met on the day and we talked about, what could we do? And the whole smoking bylaw had just hit. And, we all kind of agreed like how kind of idiotic it was. We were complaining about it and like just, and I'm not a smoker, but even I recognized was like, this wasn't really handled properly.
Work?
Yeah. So we just kind of bitched about that for a while and then kind of rolled with that. It was like the idea of like someone going out to find a place to smoke and then ending up somewhere dark and dangerous. But then we had this creepy mask and the idea was that it was always stalking her. Kayla was the one wearing it and she was always in the background of every shot until the very end. So that was just a pure improviser. It was just the three of us. I shot and then we brought it home and I cut it and like, because we wanted to put it out for Halloween.
Yeah.
Have it really timely. So yeah, it was just a fun little thing.
It
Never
was a
meant
fun
it.
thing.
Thanks. Yeah, it totally wasn't meant to be like anything,
I enjoyed
major.
it.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, what are you working on now currently?
Just wrapped up the edit for Presents, the short, and that's off to a few festivals and keep working on trying to get it in more. I got a few other scripts, and I've been working a lot with Brittany. We're kind of partnered up now, so.
Here's the one. Do you have you're kind of like writing partners now?
Sort of, and producing partners, yeah.
Producing partners,
Yeah.
I get, but writing partners, how does that work? Do you write a section and she writes a section, or?
Right now, it's a lot of my past scripts that I haven't done anything with yet that I've been sending her, and we can have a couple picked out that's like one that we know we could do. With very little resources, we could bang out like pretty easily. It's 2 characters in 1 location. We're amping up some of the dark comedy in it, and then I have a bigger script, which would involve we're gonna start applying for some grants and funding for because it's about a 15-minute short, but involves a lot of special effects and weapons and different things. But I wrote that script. It's called Hunter's Orange, and I wrote that about
Hunter's Orange.
Yeah,
it's like Hunter's Orange, a group of people.
No, I mean it's around the idea of like the orange that you have to wear during when you go out hunting, but it's kind of like a dark crime thriller, but it really centers around like a teenager coming like into adolescence with his father, and while they're out on their hunting trip, they come across these criminals in the woods who ends up killing his dad, and he has to kind of to survive and avenge his father. So it's it's really centered around that idea of like, youth and losing a parent.
And that's the thing, like there are no good thrillers these days.
Yeah, no, especially
on those big screens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like, especially like more serious Coen Brothers, like No Country for Old Men, Blood Simple, those kind of like slow burn, 70s crime. Like
No Country for Old Men was scary as fuck.
Yeah, which one?
No Country for Old Men. Yeah. What's his name?
The main villain?
Yeah.
Yarver.
Bardem.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, he won an Oscar for that role.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And that was one of his breakout roles. He hadn't done a lot in America.
Wow.
Before that, I don't think.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Well, the thing I loved about that and like conversations I had with people were like everyone assumed it was Josh Brolin's character's story. So then, I mean, I'll spoil this for people who haven't seen it, but I assume most people have.
I mean, it's 10 years old now?
Yeah, it's been out there. Like, I can spoil it. When he dies, like 2/3 of the way through, and it's so unexpected, and you don't even see it on camera, people get pissed. Like people are angry. It's like
I'm like invested in this character, and then he just
he
has a meaningless death.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't even see.
You don't see it happen.
God damn it.
So then you realize, no, this was Tommy Lee Jones was the
sheriff.
Yeah, the sheriff. So you realize, oh, that was his kind of story.
Yeah, he's weird. That weird story was what is it? Was it a dream he told his wife at the ending or something? Like he's just sitting at the dining table and then he tells this weird story.
Yeah.
Anyway, those guys, they always make weird films. Although I like the one where Brad Pitt was like a weird character. I think it was
Burn After Reading.
Yeah.
I
really love that.
I love that one. So many people. I was working at Video Difference when that came out, and so many people hated it.
I love that film.
What I love about that and their work is they have this ability to take kind of tropes of a genre and then just Like, I remember when we were going through film school, we would look at like a classic version of a genre. So we looked at a film noir film from like the 40s. And then you would look at something that was neo-noir, and we watched their first movie, Blood Simple. And the whole idea was like, how do they take the tropes of, you know, the classic genre and turn it on its ear? So that you would have the femme fatale, who's supposed to be instigating everything and the main villain. But in their version, it's accidental. She's not trying to manipulate any characters. It's just their interpretations of her actions cause them to do these bad things. And they're so good at that. So like Burn After Reading has the ending of it where he's like, you know, they're going through this crazy story of what happened. And someone brings in this folder to J.K. Simmons in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, and what did we learn? And he just closes his nothing. And it's like the whole movie was pointless. Like this amazing story happens, but there was no meaning to it, and there was no message or thing learned. It was just pure, just people being idiots, basically.
Talking of that, I mean, a couple of years ago, you actually started this endeavor on stream,
Right? Yeah.
cinema.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you don't want to. When I remember seeing that message you sent out, and like my heart broke because it was a great platform.
Yep.
And it's something like doesn't really exist.
For sure.
Because I'm one of those people that no matter, like, even if I get to a stage where I make feature films, I'm always going to make short. Say, short has its own language. It's so beautiful.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
It's not something you just want to make and send out to a festival or show your friends. You want to give it a place where it lives, and like it's not going to live on Netflix or TV or CBC.
Yeah.
So it was great that happened. And before we talk about the demise, let's go back. What made you decide to do it?
I mean, I definitely had those similar feelings. Like I'd been making shorts for almost 10 years at that point, and you know, had various success, festivals, people seeing it and kind of getting around, but never like a real boom of like, holy shit, check this out, you know, and kind of going viral or whatever. So I was always like, and I also love watching shorts, and I would spend as much time going to Vimeo and searching to find something of quality as I would actually watching them. So I was like, if there's somewhere that curates that for me and just a place where you can binge. And my whole thought was like, this content is perfect for those, you know, that binge watching. You know, you can watch 3 5-minute shorts and then maybe, you know, on the bus, and then you get off, you go about your day, you watch a few more. Like, to me, it made sense. And it kind of, the opportunity came up when I was working for a production company, and they kind of wrapped up a lot of us after a year and a half. So I was laid off, and I was on EI, actually employment insurance, for the first time in my life. And that opened the door to go through the Center for Entrepreneurship and Development Lab, SEED program, where you start a small business. What was interesting about that, it was a wonderful experience. You get a little bit of a living allowance from the province to like start a business, and you do like 25 workshops at SEED. But what was interesting about that was like I was the only like person starting a business that operated outside of like Nova Scotia. Like it's a lot of people starting like, you know, landscaping business or like plumbers, electricians. Like there's a lot of that, or, you know, event planning. And here I was coming in, I was like, I'm going to do something that's basically like, you know, a Netflix like thing. And I was never using that in my terminology of like, I'm going to be Netflix for short films, but you know, that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So it was a big undertaking for, you know, a small group of people with like, you know, just provincial, you know, small Nova Scotian support. But I did that, and then, I launched that, and it was a mix of a lot of personal and, you know, small business things that kind of made it harder to get off the ground than I kind of thought. Had a lot of great opportunities, and it was something I kept fighting for, even though I wasn't making any... Well, it wasn't supporting me in any way. It was just costing me. But there was a lot of opportunity that I saw, so I kept pushing forward. But it was just ultimately, I mean, it was a big thing, big undertaking. I mean,
so are you ever looking at restarting it, or?
I could see it coming back in maybe a different format, kind of in the last, since wrapping it up and kind of just seeing the landscape of streaming platforms. There almost seems to be a bit of a pushback coming from that format, like subscription based. Like it's still Netflix is obviously sticking around, but it's becoming very niche. It's almost like Netflix probably in the next year or two is going to become very much like its own cable channel because all of the stuff's being pulled off of it and they're just producing more of their content. So you're paying $15 for a Netflix channel.
Stuff. Yeah.
You're not getting that. The original idea was you could have everything in one place. That's not going to exist. You're going to have to subscribe to Netflix and Amazon and like Disney
Hulu,
and all these, right?
Blah, blah, blah. But actually, before we'll jump back to that, I'm thinking like with all these guys opening up their stuff, they're all going to fall and like Disney's just going to eat everybody up.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Disney, because Disney already owns almost all of Hulu, and then so it's really just Warner Plus or Warner whatever it's called, and Netflix really, and Netflix they are big, so okay, so it's just gonna be Disney and Netflix, and then
no, I mean it's kind of as someone who's come from working in video stores and seeing like it's weird to think about in my life. I've seen the home entertainment industry change so much, like as it didn't. Like, it only started existing in, late 70s, early 80s, when VCRs and stuff came out. So in my life, I've seen it go from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, like all of these formats, and now it's into streaming. And it's what's interesting is to think about it being curated from one or two main sources. And, like, that whole idea, especially once you get into digital, is like, if Netflix or Disney doesn't want this film from 20 years ago, where does it go?
Yeah.
If they don't keep it on their servers... And there's no other source. Like, how does that?
It dies.
It just disappears. Yeah. And the thing, like, great films that could just
go away,
completely disappear. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I personally have been like, I have Netflix, and I just recently signed up for Prime, and use that some. But I've been renting more and kind of curating the movies that I want to watch. I'm like, I'm a movie nerd. And I know what I want to watch. I don't want to just pick the best thing on Netflix. So I've been renting a lot through Cineplex or Google, whatever, or indie stuff through Vimeo, and just like curating my own.
I don't like Vimeo. Well, I like Vimeo because that's where my stuff is. But the thing about Vimeo, I don't really like their staff picks.
No.
Yeah. Like, I think it's biased. I mean, obviously, it's going to be biased because, it's a human being picking it. Like, maybe every 10 staff picks, there'll be one that's really good. Some are just, like, preachy. Right. Or, like... It's like they're trying to push something.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't like it. See, I think, the more I go to things like, because Vimeo is the only short film place, like, the more I miss on stream, I do.
Right.
And anyway, that's me mourning.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it was a hard call when I had to shut it down. It was really just coming, it was after my first year. And I was having to, like, re-sign some, insurance and other bills, and I was like, I had just been laid off again unexpectedly, and I was like, this is, it was a few $100s a month that I was like, that could be realistically, I was like, that could go to my daughter's education or something like that, and I was like, I can't do it right now. It was just there was a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I was like, it's not the right time to keep pushing this.
So if. What states is it at now? Like, is it all packed up somewhere and you can just press a button and it comes back on, or you have to build it from the ground up again?
I mean, I would have to renegotiate all the contracts with all the filmmakers for the rights, because a lot of them, what I did, because I didn't have a lot of financial investment in it in that first year. So what I would do a lot of the time, and I think maybe because like you had.
I did have.
Yeah. I think maybe we did it too, but I would do like, give me a year to get the platform off the ground.
Yeah.
Just give me a year non-exclusive, because I was never like, I never wanted to be like only exclusively here.
Yeah.
Because that's not beneficial to anybody. And for me, it was like shorts are never going to be like that one title that's exclusively on stream is what's going to draw people in. It'd be more about having a great catalog of great shorts.
Yeah.
So I think I would do like, that's what I would say. It's like, give me a year, get off the ground, and we can renegotiate a longer thing. So by now, majority of those contracts have kind of expired. So that would probably be the biggest. And that was, honestly, the side of it, running it, that was the hardest, because I was curating the shorts. So I was watching submissions and finding my, seeking out stuff. So I was cycling through all the content, trying to figure out what would be a good fit, and then starting the conversation and having these contracts signed. And, when you're looking for originally I wanted to launch with 25 hours of content.
Yeah.
Well, that's 300 or so, like on average,
Give or
300 short films. So that's
Yeah.
300 contracts that you have to negotiate and sign and get back and get the materials from the filmmaker. So it was just a lot of like, it wasn't automated. It was just me managing all that. So that just ate up so much of my time. But I mean, the platform itself, I mean, I used, when I originally signed up, it was a company called VHX. It was since bought out, about halfway through OnStream, it was bought out by Vimeo. But they create, it's kind of like, it operates like a WordPress site. So you have templates and you can just go in and brand it how you want it. And then they have the infrastructure in the background to like stream the video and you just upload your content. You pay for hours and then you just upload the content. And what was probably my biggest hurdle that I never overcame and might have made a huge difference for OnStream was that I always, early on, my big marketing push was that I was going to have mobile apps. I wanted to have it on phones and devices because of like, this
People
content is
always-
great to watch on the
yeah,
go.
yeah.
You could download 2 short films to your phone, watch it, and then go about your day. And what was great about the platform I was using was they offered a package. You could pay so much a month. I can't remember the exact numbers, around like $1,500 a month. They would create your apps, 5 apps. It was like iPhone, Apple TV, Android, Xbox, and maybe Roku or another one. They would create that. You manage all from the website, upload all the content, and it would push out to these mobile apps.
Oh.
And they would maintain it, like any updates, push those out to all the app stores and stuff. And I shopped around, and it was by far the best deal to get these apps developed. But I obviously didn't have that much money.
Yeah.
It was like $30,000 US a year or something like that. So I tried everywhere I could, provincially and federally, to get some support. And it was a weird wording thing because it was app. So for apps, they see development, and banks don't loan to something that in their mind might not be made. A lot of the provincial funding doesn't do app development, even though like I went to a source that it was all about market growth and pushing out Nova Scotian content. I was like, I have hours of Nova Scotian content that I could push out internationally. All I need help to do that is to get these apps. It was like, to me, it was a no-brainer. But once you hear app development, they're like, no, sorry.
No.
And the problem was, and this was what I talked about with my advisor at Seed, was like I wasn't actually developing the app from scratch. They had the apps.
It's just
The infrastructure the app's made.
splash your
It's
name
legit-
on it.
Yeah, exactly. You just give them your branding. They take a couple months to put that in place and link it to your website. And then, but I couldn't, so I never overcame that. I never got funding to help with that. And yeah, some of the like, I won't get into the specifics, but like some of the responses I got back were pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
For these departments that are like, we want to support Nova Scotian content, but not in that way. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. Okay. So, Colin, I'm gonna end it with this one.
Yeah,
now.
for sure.
I mean, with the experience you've had, what advice would you give to someone that wants to go out there and make their own films?
I mean, I always like to be the positive person, no matter how hard it's been at times over the years, of like, the best way to learn is just to do it. And at this point, in the industry, like the access is just insane. And I think that's the best. Like I love film school, and I learned a lot of working in as a professional crew from going through it. But I also learned so much more just by going out and making terrible, terrible movies. And each one gets a little better.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get one that you're like, hey, yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of that one. And then you kind of just, and it takes time. You're not always going to be that person who goes out there, makes a short, it goes viral, maybe, but chances are. But then, yeah, the difficulty is getting people to see it. So, that's still something, there's no magic formula to, get an audience. So it's just a matter of keep trying. And yeah, I think that's the best advice I have, is just get out there and tell your stories and find interesting stories.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Colin.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
This is the Blackout Podcast.
Thanks for listening.